For a man who prefers to direct and control, the past few days have proven profoundly uncomfortable. At home, President Putin is dealing with a catastrophe, the deaths of 64 people in a terrible fire. In the international arena, he stands alone after a coalition led by Britain expelled more than 100 Russian diplomats. And the world is still waiting for Putin's response as he deals with grieving relatives and anxious officials in Siberia. But the mass expulsion of Russian personnel continues. NATO, the latest body to retaliate for the poisoning of Sergei and Yulia Skripal.
I have today withdrawn the accreditation of 7 staff at the Russian mission to NATO. This sends a clear message to Russia that there are costs and consequences for its unacceptable and dangerous pattern of behavior.
It was left to the man who runs the Russian foreign ministry to speak for the nation, and he promised a robust defense.
Rest assured, we will respond. No one will want to tolerate such obnoxiousness, and we won't either.
Mr. Lavrov accused Washington of applying colossal pressure on Russia, but he won't decide how the country responds. That ruling will be made by Mr. Putin in the Kremlin, and it's not an easy decision to make. He will order tit-for-tat expulsions with countries that have kicked out Russian staff, and he may go further by closing other nations' consulates. Mischievous Russian officials have already used Twitter to ask, which US consulate in Russia should we shut? And there are other options. Ramping up Russian propaganda, for example, and turning it on Donald Trump.
President Putin thought he was on friendlier terms with the American president. In fact, the two men chatted on the phone just last week. But the Russian leader has miscalculated. In his bid for power and influence worldwide, the US and its allies have said no more.
We are now engaged in a full-scale, real Cold War. It's not a metaphor, it's a certain kind of new reality, which means that other measures will be taken as well. So I can expect new rounds of sanctions against Russia, maybe at the end something like even Iranian-style sanctions. Russia will, of course, seek ways how to respond. So we are on the brink to the pretty nasty period.
The people of Russia are preoccupied with other matters. Memorials to the fire in the city of Kemerovo have been held around the country. But their leaders have additional concerns with an international campaign now directed against them. John Sparks, Sky News in Moscow.